Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. I'm your host, Tariq. I'm holding it down today for you guys. We're finally back in the playoffs, and I love every second of it. Today's episode actually isn't going to be too difficult, but I will be going over and I'm going to give you my top five Super Bowl candidates. So basically, I'm going to give you the top five teams that I think honestly can give you a Super Bowl championship. If you live in one of these cities, congratulations. But I'm also going to tell you what my criteria for a Super Bowl champion is. So here's where we're going to start. We're actually going to start with this week's wild card games because I actually don't think they're that hard to see, but there's some gems. Um, but yeah, I'm looking at these games and I said, all right, well, let's get this out of the way. I kind of was going back and forth about what I should do, but I'm gonna give you my picks first. All right. So for a wild card round, I think some of these games aren't that interesting, and we pretty much know what's gonna happen. So let's start there with a game that I'm looking at it and saying, well, pretty much this is an easy one. So the Miami Dolphins are playing the Buffalo Bills. I actually think Miami got lucky getting to the playoffs, and I would have much rather have seen Pittsburgh in the playoffs. But we are here. How we get here. Mike Tomlin once again has never had a losing season. Congratulations to him. He's doing great things. But very quickly, Buffalo's going to win this game. Tua is out for this game. Still got thoughts in my head about him, and just about his not just football future, but like just where he's at mentally, having three concussions this year. It's really hard to bounce back from. But I think Buffalo wins this game. They're division rivals, so I guess it might be close, but I'm looking at a double digit win here. All right. Another one. They just played last week, but the Bengals are going to be hosting the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's not playing in this game. It seems as though he's pretty much done. I think because they said initially his knee injury, it was like 1 to 3 weeks, and he's not played in about seven now. um, I think he's mad that they did not give him a contract, and I actually tend to agree. You pay that man, you clearly see this offense moves more effectively when he's there, and you make sure that he feels good about it. And if he don't feel good about it or secure in him playing, and if he's got to worry about what's going to happen if I get hurt or what's going to happen if I'm not at my complete best 100% of the time, if my money's not going to be there, I would sit out too. So with that said, I'm looking at the Bengals to win this one. Once again, still division rivals, so it could be relatively close, but I'm picking the Bengals in this one as well. Um, Next we got San Fran hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Um, I actually thought last week that Green Bay would win that game against Detroit and be in the playoffs. If you looked at last week's episode, you would have seen my NFL rankings of teams that did not want to get played, meaning the top teams really don't want to play these teams. And I had Detroit and Green Bay both in it. But we're here how we're here, and I think the NFC playoffs would have been different if either one of those two teams were in the playoffs. But we're here how we're here, and I'm taking San Fran to take this one. It's pretty easy. But I do think this one actually will be a little bit closer than the other two, only because uh, their quarterback is there and Geno Smith is there and they know what they're doing. They're division rivals. They've played them. So I don't think we're looking at an upset, but I am looking at a better game here. And I actually would like to see this game. So moving on, I am looking at the Giants. They're going to go to Minnesota and play the Vikings. And actually, I do have some thoughts about this game. I tend to think my pick is going to be the Minnesota Vikings. Um, I do think the Giants could take this game. I think Minnesota's defense has not been that good. Um, and also they have Kirk Cousins, and that always will bite you in the butt at some point. I think he's good. I in this game, the reason why I'm picking the Vikings because I think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. Although Daniel Jones may have played as well, if not better this year, I still think Kirk Cousins, having been in the playoffs, understanding the speed difference and how all this goes, I think they definitely have an advantage at the quarterback position in this game. So yeah, so that's why I'm picking Minnesota. And then going on to uh Tampa Bay hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Now this game, I wish Timmy was here to see this one. He'll be back next week. Don't worry about that. In this game, however, I think it was a pretty hard game to actually judge. I think when you look at Dallas from last week, looking at the fact that they got beat by Washington so bad, 26-6. Now, my whole thing on that one is okay, yes, they put up a stinker. I'm not gonna lie about that. But that stinker was against a division rival. Now, when you talk about teams in your division, you don't look at that and say, okay, if we're facing a good team in our division, that we're just gonna sweep them. That usually doesn't happen. So Dallas got beat by a team that can beat them, you know. Washington is not a bad team, even though they didn't qualify for the playoffs. They're not a bad team, you know. But so I'm looking at all that. So now I'm also looking at Tampa Bay coming into this. Of course, Tom Brady. You know they got Tom. That's what's going down. My only issue with Tampa Bay in this whole playoffs is when Shaquille Barrett went down. That's their pass rusher. That's their closer. You know what I mean? And I think when you look at teams in the playoffs, you look at running the football, you look at defense, you look at quarterback, you know, in all of those situations. And I think Tampa Bay can run the ball. I think they have at least it's at least a tie, or I mean they even each other out in terms of quarterback position. But I look at Dallas and I say they can run the ball too. And I also look at them and say they got more of a pass rush. And I actually do think the Dallas Cowboys are going to go into Tampa Bay and win that game. Um, I just got a feeling, and half of that feeling is they just put up that stinker. So one thing that I've always said about Dallas is anytime that Dak Prescott has to put this team on his back, I don't like how that's going to turn out for them. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback, and I think that's a great quarterback attribute. However, this whole team got embarrassed last week, and I think this team is looking for a game to um, make things better, make it look better, make you forget that they just lost the way they did. So I'm picking Dallas this week to go into Tampa Bay and win this game, and a lot of people aren't. Which brings me to the game of this week, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars hosting the I almost called them San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. Now I'm going to do a rankings, and I'm not going to tell you about it, but just know these two teams are part of that ranking. I think both of these teams, when you look at it on paper, have what it takes to win a Super Bowl. So I feel as though they could go play any team, and they would be a headache for any of these teams to deal with. So I look at them and I say, this game is going to be crazy. And I honestly, even me saying this, um, I'm really not sure who's going to win this game. That's the truth. The truth of the matter is, I'm not sure who's going to win this game. Um, with that said, I kind of think the Chargers are going to go into Jacksonville and win. And here's why. I think at quarterback, depending on who you like better is who you like better, but there's not a huge gap in quarterback play. I just think the Chargers are a little bit more experienced. I think their wide receiving core is better. I think their defense is better. I think the potential of their pass rush is pretty high. I think the only difference between you looking at the Chargers as a Super Bowl team and not is really about consistency, not necessarily talent. So that's why I think this week I'm going to go with the Chargers, but I could be very wrong about that. Okay. Okay. So boom. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Oh, so that wraps up. That wraps up this week. This wild card round. We're gonna talk next week, and we'll see what's to what everything that I said. All right. So now we're going to talk about what I wanted to talk about this week, which is one of the topics I love to talk about. I talk about this in the summertime, which is which team is going to win the Super Bowl. Now, I'm gonna give you 5 teams that I'm saying that would be it. If it's not, I'm saying for sure it's not one of these teams. And you're probably going to be surprised a little bit by who I pick and who I don't pick. But I'm saying it's definitively, I'm 100% sure the Super Bowl winner will be one of these 5 teams. Okay? All right, cool. So my attributes for Super Bowl, as I said a little bit earlier, the winners of of playoff games and how it looks and which team does what. I look at quarterback play, I look at running game, I look at defense. The teams that have the best combination of all of that, those are the teams that usually they go to the Super Bowl every year. Now, I'm going to break that down a little further. These are the Super Bowl winning team attributes and how I see them. And I think so. I'm not going to talk about running game right here, but I think if you have this, this is why you're able to run the ball effectively and you can maximize that. So here's my rankings of Super Bowl winning attributes. Number 1, you got to have at least top 10 quarterback, right? Hear me out. You got to have a top 10 quarterback. That means you can have a guy who's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can have that guy. But that guy has to make less than 13% of your total team's cap. There's a statistic, I've said it before, there's a statistic that says there has never, and I repeat, never been a Super Bowl winning team that their quarterback made more than 13%. Tom Brady being the only quarterback to even do it at 13%. Everybody else, every other Super Bowl winner at the time when they won the Super Bowl made less than 13%. But because we got Tom Brady, I'll throw that in there too. So 13% of your salary, of your team's salary cap. But that person has to be in the top 10 of quarterbacks. Next on that list is not having a top 5 wide receiver. I know I'm about to get killed in the comments for saying this, but in the history of the NFL, and tell me if I'm wrong, please hold me accountable. Tell me if I'm wrong. The only top 5 wide receivers to win the Super Bowl when they were top 5 wide receivers, I got Jerry Rice, I got Lynn Swann, I got Michael Irvin. Depending on who you talk to, Marvin Harrison, and depending on who you talk to, what was the boy's name from the Rams? Like Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, depending on who you talk to. So I got 3 definitive wide receivers that they were definitively top 5 wide receivers. There were not 5 wide receivers better than them at that time when they won the Super Bowl. And I have 2 wide receivers that are debatable depending on where you saw their career at that time. So I got Michael Irvin, Jerry Rice, Lynn Swann, Marvin Harrison, and Cooper Kupp. Now that's 5. If I'm 100% right, that's 5 wide receivers. The league has not been able to produce all these top 5 wide receivers. Usually do not win the Super Bowl. That's a fact. So I look at that, and you can look at all the rest of the wide receivers that were top 5. Keep looking. I mean, you're not going to find it. So not only do you have to have a top 10 quarterback that makes less than 13% of the team's cap, you cannot have a top 5 wide receiver. But not inversely, but I do like to see a top 10 pass rush. So teams that can pass, that can rush the passer. Now, what I really like to see, I like to see teams that have 2 legitimate pass rushers. But sometimes that team can have 1 legitimate pass rusher and just a combination of pass rushers coming in and doing it. But you got to have at least 1 definitive pass rusher, but sometimes it's more of a team win more or less than just a dominant pass rusher, you know? So I want to see a top 10 pass rush, you know? And lastly, but it was hard for me to put in, was offensive line rankings. Now, you got to have a good offensive line, but I don't know if statistically you can pinpoint this definitely happens, or statistically, offensive line is definitely this, but definitely continuity and, you know what I mean, putting the pieces in the right places. But continuity, I think, plays a pretty big part of offensive line. So offensive lines sometimes put it together. You know, like for instance, I remember when Aaron Rodgers won his Super Bowl, that offensive line wasn't statistically good, but they put it together and they had played together all year. And by the playoffs, they ended up being able to do that consistently. Thus, me saying teams can run the ball effectively because James Starks was their running back. But there's been other situations. So yeah, so that's my Super Bowl winning attributes. Top 10 quarterback making less than 13% of the team's salary, not having a top 5 wide receiver, having a top 10 pass rush, and offensive line continuity, you know, pretty much just putting that together. So with that said, here's my top 5 teams that can win the Super Bowl. So these, what I'm saying is, if it's not one of these 5 teams, it ain't gonna happen. Okay. And I know, I'm telling you right now, be prepared for it, because I guarantee you I'm about to leave a team off that you think is definitely a Super Bowl contender. All right. So number 5, I'm going the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know people were looking at me probably like, Jacksonville, that's who you're going to start this list off with. I'm gonna be honest with you. Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. That's a top 5 quarterback. He might be better than top 5. He might, you know, but like he's about to be in this list, and I think he just figured stuff out. I love that Jacksonville, they don't have a good receiving core, but you can't tell. That's what I really love about them. And their pass rush ability is very good. The only thing that I don't like about Jacksonville, and that's this year, is their offensive line is pretty shaky. Um, I've seen them kind of go in and out. Being a Colts fan, I see Jacksonville twice a year, so I kind of see what happens and, you know, why things happen. But their offensive line to me is not strong. So I don't know if consistently they can run the ball. I don't know, you know, I don't know how that's going to pan out. I think that they have a chance if that offensive line gets it together. I think they absolutely have a chance to beat anybody. So that's number 5 for me. Number 4 is the Chargers, the LA Chargers. Now, the great thing about my first 2 picks to me is they're playing each other this week. So we're about to figure this out real quick. But I do think the winner of this game has a chance to go into Kansas City or Buffalo and win. Okay. So the Chargers, what I like about the Chargers is, like I said, the potential of their pass rush. Hold on, give me a second to look up pass rush, because they're right next to it. So the Jaguars pass rush win percentage is 44%, and the Rams is 45%, and they're literally 7 and 8 in pass rush. So the Rams pass rush is just as good, if not maybe a little bit better. They also have a quarterback that we can talk about top 5, you know, anything. And I'm eating a little bit of crow with them because they just never put it together. You know, I might admit that I have a little sore spot because I have sports bet and been confident in games that the Chargers were going to win in the past, and they always figure out a way to mess that up. So I am very slow on the Chargers. However, I think reality is reality. They have a quarterback that's top 5 and is making. Hold on, let me get that exact percentage. I'll give you the exact percentage. The Chargers cap percentage, they have 3% of their cap in their quarterback, and the Jaguars have 4%. So, you know, they're well under that 13% rank. So I actually am a pretty big fan of watching them. Okay, so that's number 4. Oh, excuse me, guys. over here dropping stuff. Got excited. So number 3. Let me take a sip real quick. Number 3, I'm going San Francisco 49ers. Now, this is the most complete team. Okay. So the offensive line. So hold on. Let me give you exacts. I'm gonna give you exacts. So their offensive line is ranked 5th in the NFL. Their pass rush is ranked. Give me 1 second. Is ranked 5th, and they get to the quarterback 46% of the time. So almost half of the time. Their quarterback percentage is, and I had to check this a lot of times, but they only have they have like 4.45% of their cap. And I had to check because I wasn't sure how much Jimmy Garoppolo was making, and I wasn't sure how that was going to pan out. But yeah, he took a contract that basically said he doesn't get as much as we think this year. So their overall cap percentage for the quarterback, not just that player, but the quarterback is still 4.45%. So about 4.4, 4.5, however you want to look at it. Okay. The only issue that I have with the San Francisco 49ers is I don't know what Brock Purdy is. Can any of you tell me what Brock Purdy is? Because the league pretty much says to me, okay, he was Mr. Irrelevant. That was when he was drafted. He was the last pick in the draft. Not a great sign. He was not their first, not their second, but their third string quarterback. When was the last time you saw a quarterback that was third string win a Super Bowl? I can give you 2 that won a Super Bowl that were backups. That's Jeff Hostetler with the Giants and Nick Foles with the Eagles. So I can give you 2 quarterbacks that were backups that won the Super Bowl, but this is their third string quarterback. And when I look at the total team, I'm like, wow, this is a scary team, but that quarterback position, man, I don't know what he is. He could be, I don't know if he's good or if he's bad. I'm being honest. I don't know where he ranks. I don't know if he's a top 10 quarterback. I know he don't get paid that much, but I don't know if he's a top 10 quarterback. And that's the truth. So I got San Fran number 3. Number 2, I have Cincinnati. I got the Cincinnati Bengals. Here's where things get weird with them. So what I like about them is they have a team. Their continuity on their team is great. They've been to the playoffs. They were in the Super Bowl last year. Okay. They have a top 5 quarterback, and Joe Burrow, just for everybody out there, Joe Burrow is getting, Cincinnati. He's getting paid 5% of the total team's salary. So that's actually all 3 of their quarterbacks. So they're only paying 5% to their quarterback. That's outstanding. They're the team that is the most seasoned to go on this run. There's 2 things that I don't like about this. One, their offensive line. It's better than last year. Believe it or not. So the offensive line is better than it was last year. Still not something that I'm looking at and saying that's a strength. Okay. I could be wrong about that, but I still don't think that's a strength. And their defensive pass rush, I don't love. So their pass rush percentage is, they're actually 21st in the league in pass rush percentage. So getting to the quarterback, they're 21st. The only reason that I think that I could be wrong, their pass rush has been good and their offensive line has been good. But I think that they have the best quarterback that all of these teams have. So out of all the teams on this list, I think Cincinnati has the best quarterback out of these teams. And I think that means a lot. You know what I mean? To have that. So if just as a team, I lean towards Cincinnati more, but I can't deny that their flaws are their flaws on their team, and I don't know if they can do something consistent. If they can get to the passer consistently right now, if they can block better consistently right now. And you know what I mean? So like I kind of look at that and I kind of go towards Cincinnati still being a team that I would not be shocked if they won the Super Bowl. I I think that they definitely have a great opportunity to win the Super Bowl, but they absolutely have flaws, and it's the only reason I kept them out of that number one slot. Now, for me, the number one team, the number one team that I think is going to win the Super Bowl is the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, the reason why I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win Super Bowl, they have all of the magical numbers. They check all the boxes. Let's take a look at the Eagles, everything. So their offensive line rankings is number one. The only thing is we'll see about that injury this week with the right tackle. Is it Lane Johnson? We'll see how that affects everything. If not this week because they got to bye this week, but going into next week if he plays, I'm not sure all of that, but we'll see. But their offensive line is ranked number one. Their pass rush is ranked number one. So before we even go any further, that means that they can get to the passer. Their defense is sporadically great at times, but definitely they're the best at getting to the passer, and they get to the passer 52% of the time. That means more than half of the time they're getting home. So there's that. The offensive line being the number one, which means to me they'll be able to run the ball. They'll definitely be able to run the ball and control clock. And you know what I mean? If they play a team that might be more talented than them or offense, they're like, I really can't stop. They have the ability to keep that team off the field. Okay. That's that potential. And also, let's see the Eagles. And Eagles, they are only they're only playing 1.24% of the whole cap to their quarterback. So Jalen Hurts this year is a MVP candidate for the regular season that he did. He had a great year. I don't know in terms of his consistently. He's never been on this stage. That's something against him. I don't know about his consistently, but the team that you can clearly see the difference in that team when he is playing and when he is not playing. The only question I have about the Eagles is can Jalen Hurts play I'm talking about in the game with so I think he'll definitely be better than like a Brock Purdy. But is he considerably better than Brock Purdy, which he kind of has to be to beat a San Francisco? If he plays Joe Burrow, if he plays what's his name? Trevor Lawrence, if he plays Herbert, if he plays Josh Allen, if he plays Patrick Mahomes, can he play with them at the same time? That's really the only question that has to be answered. And he'll answer that in the upcoming weeks. And I'll be very excited to see that. And that's really the only question I have about that. So just so we're clear, I'm leaving off Kansas City off of that team. You want to know why? You want to know why I'm leaving off Kansas City? This is pretty easy. Kansas City, they are invested 20.95%. About 21% of their salary cap is going to that quarterback. I think that's why they will be out of the Super Bowl. Because they have a pass rush, they still have receivers, but it's too much. That means they'll have too many holes. Buffalo with Josh Allen. Josh Allen's getting 17.5, so between 17 and 18% of that cap. Not only that, Von Miller's out for the whole year. So the quarterback is getting paid too much, and their number one pass rusher is going. And I think, like I said, that's two falls for them. So just so we're clear, just so we're clear and we can clear this up, I want to be very clear. I understand who I'm leaving off. Okay? I understand who I'm leaving off. But the teams, I'm saying definitively, neither one of those teams are going to win the Super Bowl. We know Kansas City winning the Super Bowl. They might get there. I don't know. But they definitely will not win the Super Bowl. And I'm saying Buffalo definitely won't win the Super Bowl. They might get to the Super Bowl. They will not win. Okay, I'm telling you, those two teams will not win the Super Bowl. So just so we're clear, ranking from 5 to 1, who I think can win the Super Bowl, I think Jacksonville, number 5. I think Chargers, number 4. I think San Francisco 49ers, number 3. I'm taking Cincinnati, number 2, and I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles as the team that I think has the best chance to win the Super Bowl. And I'm saying after that, and there's no other teams that can win the Super Bowl. I'm saying they can't win the Super Bowl. That's where I'm at. The rest of these teams cannot win the Super Bowl. It is one of those teams. But I'd love to hear how you guys feel about what I said and how you feel about it. Please hit me up in the comments. Hit me up. Let's get to it. Let's talk. We talk on here, but we could talk. We could talk in the comments as well. I'd like to hear from you. You're hearing from me. I'd like to hear from you too. So, with that said, guys, we've kind of come to the end of this episode. Now, a lot of you guys are going to see by the time you see this, the games will have already started. So I get that. So this would be real quick for me to hear something back. So either I'm right or I'm wrong, but I'm cool with being wrong. I just don't think I am. So with that said, guys, this is another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. We thank you all for your likes. We like you all. We thank you all for your subscriptions. We like you all. We thank you all through all the platforms that we're on, through Instagram, through TikTok, through YouTube. We appreciate you guys being with us, and we have so much better, so much more coming, so much more. So thank you guys for what you have done for us, because we're not here without you, and we can't wait for what's going to be happening next. So with that said, I'm your host, Tariq. You guys have a great day, and we'll be talking real soon. All right? Thank you guys.